At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister's kid dumped gravy over my son's plate and said, "Eat the mess where you belong." Mom took her side and said, "Your kid ruins every table anyway." I didn't argue. I put my son's coat on and left. Before midnight, I made one call and went to sleep. At 7:46 a.m., my sister reached for her house keys, and then the gravy boat was full when Cade picked it up. Brown turkey gravy, still warm, made from the drippings Glenda had been fussing over since 7 a.m. Cade held it with one hand, which is not how you hold a gravy boat. It is how you hold something you intend to pour. And he tilted it over Mercer's plate without pausing, without aiming, without looking at anyone else at the table first. The gravy hit the mashed potatoes and the turkey and the cranberry sauce and the green beans, and it kept coming until the plate was a brown pool with food drowning in it, and the gravy ran over the edge of the plate and onto the tablecloth in a slow spread that reached Mercer's placemat and stopped. Mercer did not move. His hands were in his lap. His right hand was holding the skeleton key that hangs from a leather cord around his neck, the one Grandpa Edwin gave me and I gave him on his 7th birthday. Old iron. Tarnished, the teeth worn smooth from 50 years of use in a hardware store that does not exist anymore. The key does not open any door. It opens every conversation about what our family does. We are locksmiths. We work with our hands. We make things that keep people safe. Mercer was holding the key and looking at his plate, and the gravy was dripping off the table onto his pants, and he did not move. Because Mercer has learned that moving at this table makes things worse. Speaking makes things worse. Existing at this table, at this house, in this family, makes things worse. He is 9 years old, and he has already built a survival system that runs on stillness. Cade set the gravy boat down. He looked at Mercer and said, "Eat the mess where you belong." 12 years old. Those words did not come from a 12-year-old's vocabulary. Those words were absorbed. Repeated, performed. Cade has been hearing versions of that sentence from Glenda for years. The way children absorb phrases from the adults who say them loudest. And Cade heard "your kid ruins every table" enough times that the gravy boat was not an impulse. It was a recital. My mother Glenda was at the head of the table. She saw the gravy. She saw the plate. She saw Mercer sitting in brown liquid with his hand on a key and his eyes on the table. She did not look at Cade. She looked at me. "Your kid has sat at this table for 9 years and never once fit in. He picks at his food. He does not talk to anyone. He stares at that stupid key around his neck like it is a toy." Cade is right. Mercer does not belong at this table. You do not belong at this table. You are a locksmith, Lyle. You fix doors for a living. Stop acting like you built the house. My father Arlen was at the other end. He was cutting his turkey. He did not look up. He did not set his knife down. He cut a piece of turkey and he ate it, and he chewed and he swallowed, and the sound of his chewing was the loudest thing he contributed to the moment. Noelle, my sister, was sitting across from me. She watched Cade pour the gravy. She watched the pool spread across Mercer's plate. She did not say a word to her son. She picked up her wine glass, and she took a sip, and she set it down, and the ring the glass left on the tablecloth was perfectly round, which is a detail I noticed, because I notice details. That is my job. I notice pins and tumblers and the angle of a cam in a cylinder and the tolerance between a keyblade and a keyway. I notice when things fit and when they do not. My son did not fit at this table. My son has never fit at this table. And until tonight, I thought that was his problem. It is not. It is theirs. Porter, Noelle's husband, was in the living room watching football. He heard the gravy land. He did not come to the table. Porter does not come to tables where things happen. Porter comes to tables where things are served. I stood up. I walked to Mercer. I took a napkin from the table, and I wiped the gravy off his hands and off the key and off the cord. I put his coat on him, the blue one with the hood that he zips all the way to his chin because he likes the feeling of being enclosed. I buttoned the top button. I took his hand. We walked out. The door closed behind us. The Thanksgiving smell stayed inside. Turkey and stuffing, and the warm yeast of dinner rolls, and the brown sugar. Top of the sweet potato casserole I had brought because I always bring. The sweet potato casserole because nobody else in this family cooks a side dish, and nobody thanks me for it, and this year the casserole was. Sitting on the table, next to a gravy-covered plate that belonged to my son. In the truck, Mercer buckled his seatbelt and sat with his hands wrapped around the skeleton key. He held it with both hands the way you hold something when everything else has been taken and the one thing left is too important to let go. His pants had gravy on the left knee. His shirt had a splash mark near the collar. He smelled like turkey drippings and the fabric softener I use on his church clothes, because Thanksgiving at Glenda's requires church clothes, even though God is not present at that table and has not been for years. He did not cry. He has learned that crying in this family is evidence used against him. He learned it at 5 when he cried at the beach house, and Glenda said, "See, he is too sensitive for trips." He learned it at 7 when he cried after Cade called the skeleton key stupid, and Noelle said, "Lyle, your kid is dramatic." He learned it at 8 when he cried at a birthday party, because Cade took his slice of cake and ate it in front of him, and Porter said, "Boys need to learn to share." Sharing is not what happens when a bigger child takes a smaller child's food and eats it while adults watch. That is not sharing. That is a rehearsal for gravy. I drove home. I made Mercer a grilled cheese with 2 slices of American and a side of tomato soup from a can, because Campbell's tomato soup is what Edwin used to make me when I was Mercer's age, and the world felt too big, and the kitchen felt just right. Mercer ate the sandwich. He ate the soup. He did not ask about the dinner. He did not ask about Cade or Glenda or why his grandmother thinks he ruins every table. He held the key while he ate, rubbing the iron teeth with his thumb, the motion he makes when he is processing something that hurts too much for words. At 8:30 he said, "Dad, the key is still clean." I wiped it off in the car. "I know. Thank you for wiping it." He went to bed at 9. He put the key on his nightstand next to a book about marine animals and a Lego spaceship he has been building for 2 weeks and a glass of water I filled for him because hydration matters and because my son should have a full glass at arm's reach at all times, because he is 9 and full. Glasses are the kind of thing that fathers provide and families do not. Notice until the glass is empty. I sat at the kitchen table until 11. I almost called Glenda. I almost picked up the phone and said every number and every transfer and every Zelle and every month of mortgage payment and every lie about maintenance funds and subletting and the time Mercer slept on a screened porch and the time he ate Thanksgiving on a counter and the time a 12-year-old poured gravy on his dinner because his grandmother taught him it was okay. The thing that stopped me was the key. Edwin's key. Hanging on the hook by the front door where Mercer places it every night. Iron, smooth teeth. It does not open any door. But it reminds me what opening means, and what closing means, and what locking means. I made one call. Ames Garza answered on the second ring. He always answers. 12 years of partnership. He installed the locks on my first commercial account. He taught me to rekey a schlag in under 90 seconds. He once drove 40 miles at 2 AM to help me with a lockout at a women's shelter because the intake door had jammed and 14 people were standing in the rain, and Ames did not ask why or how much or whether it could wait until morning. He drove. He fixed it. He went home. Ames, I need you at the duplex. Both units. Full rekey. Tonight? What happened? Cade poured gravy on Mercer's plate at Thanksgiving. Glenda told Mercer he does not belong. Noelle has been subletting Unit B for 18 months. $800 a month. Glenda's been routing my maintenance money to Noelle's checking. 4 seconds of quiet. I will be there in 40 minutes. You want both units? Both units. Every pin. Both keypads. Leave a notice on each door. Copy Ames, Yeah, thank you. That is what partners do, Lyle. We answer the call. If you are watching Family Secret Tales for the first time, welcome. This is not a story about gravy. This is a story about a duplex, a skeleton key, and what happens when a locksmith decides who gets access and who gets locked out. I own Thorpe Lock and Key. Commercial and residential. 16 years in the trade since I apprenticed under Edwin at Thorpe Hardware on Cavalcade Street. Edwin taught me the one rule: the person who controls the lock controls the door. He gave me the skeleton key and said, "It does not open anything, but it will remind you what opening means." Edwin died in 2020. He was 78. He left me the shop name, the tool cabinets, a client list of 400 accounts, and the understanding that a lock is a decision. Who gets in? Who does not? The family has been answering that question about Mercer since he was born. When Mercer was 2, Noelle hosted Christmas. She gave Cade a wrapped present under the tree, an $89 remote control truck with batteries included. She gave Mercer a gift bag from a dollar store with tissue paper that had been used before. Inside was a onesie one size too small. Mercer chewed on the tissue paper. He was 2. He did not know the difference. I did. When Mercer was 5, the family went to Galveston for Labor Day weekend. One beach house. Noelle and Porter got the master bedroom. Glenda and Arlen got the second bedroom. Cade got the bunk room. Mercer and I got the screen porch with a futon and mosquitoes. Mercer woke up with 11 bites on his arms. Glenda said, "Boys who sleep outside get bitten." That is nature. It was not nature. It was a bedroom assignment made by a grandmother who chose which grandchild gets walls and which gets screens. When Mercer was 7 and I gave him Edwin's skeleton key, Glenda said at Easter dinner, "You gave a 7-year-old a piece of junk metal. What is he supposed to do with that?" She said it in front of the whole family. Mercer was in the next room. He heard. He tightened his hand on the key, and he did not take it off the rest of the evening. He has not taken it off since. Noelle and Porter earned $130,000 combined. Matching Hyundai Tucsons. Cade has a $1,400 gaming setup, a dirt bike, and new Jordans every season. Their kitchen has granite counters and a wine fridge. Noelle posts brunch photos captioned "Blessed." I earn $91,000 from the shop. Mercer's school clothes are from Target. His bike is secondhand. His desk is scrap wood I built on a Sunday while he handed me screws and said, "Dad, I am your apprentice." Subscribe to Family Secret Tales if you have ever handed someone a key and watched them use it to lock you out of your own generosity. I bought the duplex in 2021 with money I saved from the shop. $187,000 for a 2-unit property on Quitman Street in the Heights. I renovated both units myself. I installed every lock, every deadbolt, every strike plate, every keypad on every entry point. I cut the keys on my own machine at the shop. I know every pin in every cylinder in that building because I set them. Noelle moved into Unit A 6 weeks after I closed on the property. She said she and Porter needed temporary housing while Porter's construction job relocated from Beaumont to Houston. Temporary was 5 years ago. She has not paid rent, not once, not a dollar, not an offer. She moved in with 2 suitcases and a 12-year-old and a husband who travels 4 days a week and a certainty that her brother would not charge family. She was right. I did not charge family. I charged myself. Because the mortgage on the duplex is $1,340 a month, and I pay it alone, and Noelle lives in half my building for free while her son pours gravy on my son's plate and tells him to eat the mess. 5 years. 60 months. $80,400 in mortgage payments on a building that houses a family that has never thanked me, never offered rent, and never once told Cade to keep his hands off my son's plate. Glenda collects $300 a month from me for duplex maintenance. She set it up in 2023 when the roof needed patching and said, "The property needs upkeep. Lyle, $300 a month into a maintenance fund and I will manage the repairs." I agreed because the roof did need patching and because I was running the shop 60 hours a week and because I trusted my mother to manage a fund the way I trust a deadbolt to hold a frame. The maintenance fund is not a fund. It is a pipeline. I pulled the bank records in October after a contractor I had never hired left a voicemail about the quitman job. There was no quitman job. The contractor had the wrong number, but the word quitman sat in my ear the way a miscut key sits in a lock. It went in, but it did not turn. I checked Glenda's Zelle records. Every $300 I sent went into her checking. Within 72 hours, transferred to Noel's account. $50 stayed with Glenda. 3 years, 36 months. $9,000 routed to Noel. $1,800 kept by Glenda. The maintenance fund maintained nothing. It maintained Noel. I almost called Glenda that night. The thing that stopped me was Mercer. He was at the kitchen table doing math homework with the skeleton key on the table beside his pencil, the way he keeps it close when he works. And he looked up and said, "Dad, what is 9 times 13? I said, 117. He wrote it down. He went back to work, and I went back to the bank records. The second thing I found was the sublet. Unit B of the duplex was supposed to be empty. I told Noelle she could use Unit A. Unit B was for future rental income whenever I got around to listing it. I had not gotten around to it because the shop takes 60 hours a week, and Mercer takes the other 60, and Sleep gets whatever is left. Unit B was not empty. A woman named Meg had been living in it for 18 months. She was Noelle's co-worker at the insurance agency. Noelle gave her a key. Noelle charged her $800 a month. 18 months at $800 is $14,400 in rent, collected on a property Noelle does not own, does not maintain, and does not pay for. $14. $400 in income from a building I bought and renovated and installed every lock in, and I did not know another person was living behind one of my doors. Glenda knew. Noelle told her in a text I found later. Meg is settled in Unit B. She pays on the 1st. Do not tell Lyle. Do not tell Lyle. 4 words. Written by my sister. Approved by my mother. Applied for 18 months while I paid the mortgage and sent the maintenance fund and drove to Thanksgiving with my son in a coat he zips to his chin because the world outside the zipper is not safe. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales and stay with me because the third thing involved my father's truck. Arlen's 2006 Silverado has been parked in my detached garage for 2 years. He asked in 2024 if he could store it for a few weeks while he fixed the transmission. The transmission is still broken. The truck is not moved. It sits on flat tires in my garage, taking up the space where I plan to set up a secondary key-cutting station for overflow work from the shop. 2 years of lost workspace. Arlen pays no storage fee. He does not ask permission to keep it. He chews his turkey, and he does not look up. Porter's boat trailer is on my back lot, a 22-foot tandem axle trailer with a cover that has been torn since September. It arrived 14 months ago. Porter said, "Just for the winter. It has been through 2 winters. I cannot park my work van behind the shop because Porter's trailer is blocking the access lane." I almost drove to Noelle's unit the night I found the sublet records. The thing that stopped me was the key. Mercer's key. Edwin's key. Hanging on the hook by the front door where Mercer puts it every night before bed. Iron, tarnished, the teeth smooth. It does not open any door in any building. It opens the question that runs my entire trade. Who gets in? I had been answering that question wrong for 5 years. I gave Noelle a key. She copied it for Meg. She collected $14,400. Glenda routed $9,000 of my maintenance money. Arlen parked a dead truck in my workspace. Porter blocked my access lane. And Cade poured gravy on my son's plate and told him to eat the mess. The one call happened at 11:07 p.m. on Thanksgiving night. Ames Garza answered on the second ring. He always answers. He has been my shop partner for 12 years. He installed the locks on my first commercial account. He taught me how to pick a Medico in under 4 minutes, which I have never needed to do professionally, but which I practice monthly, because skill requires maintenance the way locks require maintenance and the way families should require maintenance, but does not when the family treats the locksmith like the lock instead of the person who controls it. Ames, I need you at the duplex. Both units. Full Reiki. Tonight, what happened? Cade poured gravy on Mercer's plate. Glenda told him he does not belong. And I just found out Noel has been subletting Unit B for 18 months. 3 seconds of silence. I will be there in 40 minutes. Change every pin. Reset both keypads. Leave a 24-hour notice on each door. Unit A and Unit B. Copy? I almost went with him. The thing that stopped me was Mercer. Asleep in his room. Key on the hook. Grilled cheese in his stomach. I was not going to leave my son alone on Thanksgiving night to change locks on a building my sister stole from. Ames could handle it. Ames handles everything. That is why he is my partner. Ames drove to Quitman Street. He arrived at 11:52 p.m. He worked by flashlight and the amber glow of the porch fixture I installed 3 years ago. He changed every pin tumbler in Unit A's front and back door. 6 pins per cylinder, 2 cylinders per unit, 12 pins total for Unit A alone. He recut the deadbolt on Unit B. He reset both keypad codes from 4-digit sequences I had programmed to new sequences only I know. He posted a 24-hour notice on each door, printed on Thorpe Lock and Key letterhead, lock change per property owner. Contact Thorpe Lock and Key for new access information. He photographed each notice with a timestamp. He left at 1:30 a.m. He texted me one word. Done. I read the text. I set my phone on the nightstand next to the framed photo of Edwin at the shop counter. I went to sleep. The first full sleep I had gotten on a Thanksgiving night in 5 years. Because for the first time in 5 years, every lock in my building answered the right question. Who gets in? The person who owns the building and pays the mortgage and installed the hardware and raised a son who holds a skeleton key instead of a gravy boat. That person gets in. Nobody else. At 7:46 a.m. on Friday, November 28th, Noelle Voss reached for her house keys. I know the time because she called me at 7:48. 2 minutes between the key failing and the phone call. In those 2 minutes, she tried the front door key 3 times. Tried it upside down because people do that when a key fails and adrenaline replaces logic. Walked to the back door and tried that key. Punched the old keypad code 4 times in succession. Read the notice on the door. Read it again. And then called me. Her voice was tight and high, and it had the particular frequency of a woman who has been standing on a porch for 2 minutes in November air with a dead key in her hand and a 12-year-old behind her in pajamas, asking why the door will not open. Lyle, my key is not working. I know. What do you mean you know? I changed the locks. 4 seconds of silence. You what? I changed every lock in both units last night. Your key does not work because the pins do not match. The keypad does not work because the code has been reset. You are standing outside a building I own, that I pay the mortgage on, that I installed every lock in, and that you have been living in for 5 years without paying $1 while subletting the other unit for $800 a month to a woman named Meg, who I did not know existed until last month. You cannot do this. I live here. My stuff is in there. Cade's school clothes are in there. Your stuff is safe. The notice on the door says to contact Thorpe Lock and Key for new access. You can contact the shop during business hours. Bring the $14,400 in sublet income you collected on my property, and we can discuss access. She hung up. She called Glenda. Glenda called me 11 minutes later. The managing voice. The version of events voice. The voice that has been telling the Thorpe family what to think and who to blame and which grandchild deserves walls and which one deserves screens for 39 years. Lyle, your sister is standing outside in the cold with Cade, and he does not have a coat. You changed her locks? On Thanksgiving weekend? After everything she has been through? What kind of man locks his sister out of her home? What kind of mother tells her grandson he does not belong at a table? What kind of grandmother watches a 12-year-old pour gravy on a 9-year-old's dinner and blames the 9-year-old? What kind of woman collects $300 a month from her son for maintenance and routes $250 to her daughter? That is family money, Lyle. I manage it for the family. You manage it for Noelle. $9,000 over 3 years. I have the records, every Zelle, every transfer date, every deposit into Noelle's checking. The maintenance fund maintained nothing. It maintained Noelle's lifestyle in a building she does not pay for. You are blowing this out of proportion. Cade made a mistake at dinner. Children make mistakes. You cannot lock your sister out of her home over a spill. It was not a spill, Mom. It was a pour. Deliberate, full gravy boat tilted over a 9-year-old's dinner. And it was not a mistake because Cade said words with it. Eat the mess where you belong. Those are your words. I have heard you say them in 6 different versions across 9 years. Mercer does not fit. Mercer does not belong. Mercer ruins every table. Cade just translated them from grandmother to grandson with a gravy boat as the punctuation. You taught him the lesson. He performed the exam. And Noelle sat across the table and drank her wine and did not correct her son, because correcting him would mean correcting you. And nobody in this family corrects you, Mom. Because correcting you costs something. It costs the maintenance fund. It costs the duplex. It costs the routing. And until last night, I was the only one paying the bill for the silence. Glenda was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, your grandfather would not have done this. My grandfather would have checked the building. He walked every aisle of his store every morning at 6 a.m. He would have found Meg in Unit B on day 1. He would have asked about the maintenance fund. He would have noticed the dead truck and the boat trailer. Grandpa did not let people store their problems in his space. You stored Noelle and mine for 5 years and billed me for it. What happened at the duplex that morning was the first time the neighborhood saw the Thorpe family from the outside instead of through the version Glenda constructed. Noelle was standing at the front door of Unit A at 8:15 when I arrived with Ames. She was in sweatpants and a coat she had grabbed from her car. Cade was behind her in his pajamas. Porter was on a job site in Beaumont and would not be back until Sunday. Meg had come out of Unit B and was standing on the side walkway with her coffee, in the expression of a woman who has just realized the lease she signed with Noelle was not a lease at all, because Noelle does not own the building. A neighbor across the street, Mr. Escamilla, was on his porch with his dog. He watched. He did not intervene. He has seen Noelle's car in the driveway for 5 years and Porter's boat, trailer on the lot for over a year, and he has never said anything because neighbors do not say things until there is a lockout at 8 a.m. and a man in a Thorpe lock and key work shirt standing at the door with a partner and a clipboard. Noelle saw me. Her face went through 3 stages. Panic first, the wide eyes and the parted lips, and the hand gripping the dead key like a rosary. Then recognition. The understanding that the man in the Thorpe lock and key shirt is the same man who installed every piece of hardware she is standing outside of. Then anger. The default setting. The one she learned from Glenda. The one that replaces vulnerability, because vulnerability requires admission, and admission requires the truth. And the truth is that she has been living rent-free in her brother's building for 5 years, while collecting $14,400 in sublet income and routing $9,000 through her mother's checking, and her son poured gravy on her nephew's dinner, and she drank wine and watched. Lyle, let me in. I need Cade's school clothes. I need my insulin. My phone charger is on the kitchen counter. I will open the door. You can get your essentials. Then we are going to have a conversation about the $14,400 in sublet income you collected on my property, the $9,000 Glenda routed from my maintenance fund, and the 5 years of rent you have never paid on a building with a $1, $340 monthly mortgage that I cover alone. That is $80,400 in mortgage payments, Noelle, on a building you treated like a gift instead of a loan. I opened the door with the new key. She went inside. Cade followed, silent, his backpack already on because he had packed it before trying the front door, which tells me he knew this morning was different before the key failed. Children sense shifts before adults announce them. Cade knew something was wrong when he woke up and the porch notice was visible through the window. He packed before his mother processed. They filled 2 bags. Insulin from the refrigerator. School uniforms from the closet. Cade's laptop. Phone charger. A stack of mail from the counter. Noelle moved quickly through the rooms as though the building might lock again if she stayed too long, which it would not because I was holding the key and the key was not leaving my hand until the conversation happened. She came outside with the bags. She set them on the porch step. She turned. "You are punishing me over a gravy spill." Cade did not spill gravy. He poured it. Deliberately, on a 9-year-old's Thanksgiving dinner. And he said, "Eat the mess where you belong." That sentence did not come from a 12-year-old Noelle. That sentence came from 9 years of Glenda telling this family that my son does not fit. Cade performed the recital. "You produced the show. And the venue was a building I own that you have been profiting from without telling me. I let Meg stay because she needed help. Meg pays $800 a month. That is not help. That is a lease. On my property. Without my knowledge. You collected $14,400 in rent on a building where you pay nothing. You want to talk about the mess? You are the mess, Noelle. You have been living in my mess for 5 years and calling it home." Her chin trembled. Her left hand gripped the porch railing, the same railing I installed when I renovated the building, cedar posts I sanded and sealed on a Saturday, while Mercer sat on the lawn handing me screws. Her eyes went to the door she had walked through every morning for 5 years, without thinking about who installed the deadbolt, or who cut the key, or who paid the mortgage. I set it flat, the way I read a pin depth on a key gauge. No heat, no volume, just the measurement. I cut every key in this building. I set every pin. Your key stopped working because I made the call. Arlen came to the shop 6 days later, Tuesday afternoon. The bell above the door rang, and he walked in wearing his fishing jacket and his boots and carrying a framed photograph wrapped in a grocery bag because Arlen does not own wrapping paper and has never bought a card. He set the frame on my counter between the padlock display and the jar of key blanks. Edwin behind the counter at Thorpe Hardware, 1989, flannel shirt. Key machine in the background. Reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. Smiling. The smile of a man who built something with his hands every day of his working life and never stopped understanding what that meant. Arlen said, "Your grandfather would have kept the family together. My grandfather would have checked the building, Dad. He was not the kind of man who locked people out. He was exactly the kind of man who locked people out. He locked the store every night at 6 p.m. He checked every door. He walked every aisle. He counted every key blank. He ran his business the way a locksmith runs a building, with attention. You parked a dead truck in my garage for 2 years. You did not ask. You did not fix the transmission. You did not offer to pay storage. And you sat at a Thanksgiving table and watched a 12-year-old pour gravy on your grandson's dinner, and you chewed your turkey, and you did not say one word." Arlen looked at the photograph. He looked at the skeleton key hanging on the display hook where Mercer places it during visits. He looked at the sublet printout and the Zelle records I had laid on the counter next to the photo because I knew he would come and I knew he would bring a prop, and I knew the prop would need to sit next to the evidence so the difference between sentiment and fact would be visible in the same frame. Grandpa did not let people store their problems in his space. Dad signed the truck release. I already had it towed. He picked up the photograph. He left the release form on the counter. He walked out without signing. The bell rang once. I put the form in the drawer. I put the sublet records in the drawer. I left the photograph on the counter because Edwin deserves to stay in the shop where he spent 40 years and where his grandson runs the counter now with the same key machine in the background and the same trade in his hands. The truck was towed on December 5th. The boat trailer the same day. My garage has a key cutting station in it now. Secondary overflow from the shop. Mercer helps after school. He sorts blanks by brand and type, and he lines them up in the tray the way Edwin taught me to line them up 30 years ago. Schlag on the left, quickset in the middle, specialty on the right. He does it without being asked. He does it because it is the family trade, and the family trade is the one part of this family that has never poured gravy on anything. The fallout came in the order Ames changed the locks, unit by unit, pin by pin. Noelle found an apartment in the East End, $1,350 a month. First and last, plus deposit, $4,050. She paid it from the sublet savings. The account Glenda helped her open where the $800 a month payments from Meg had been accumulating. The account had $11,200 when Noelle moved out. $14,400 collected minus spending that included a new living room sectional, a 65-inch Samsung TV, and a trip to South Padre in August that she posted on Instagram with the caption Salt Life. Salt Life, funded by rent collected on a building her brother owns and maintains and mortgages alone, while his son eats grilled cheese on Thanksgiving because a 12-year-old poured gravy on his plate. Meg moved out of Unit B 2 weeks after the lock change. She had not known the building was not Noelle's. She told a coworker, "I thought I was renting from the owner." She had a key. She had a lease template. She had a move-in checklist. The lease template was not a lease. It was a document Noelle created on her laptop to look official. The move-in checklist was Noelle's invention. The key was a copy of a key I cut on my own machine and gave to my sister for her door, not for the door of a unit she did not occupy and did not own and had no right to rent. Meg's coworker told their manager at the insurance agency. The manager asked Noelle about the sublet income. Noelle had not reported it on her benefits paperwork. Unreported income affects benefit eligibility for the agency's healthcare plan. The HR conversation lasted 22 minutes. Noelle was not terminated, but the trust was gone, and in insurance. Trust is the policy nobody can write a claim against. Glenda's $300 pipeline went dry the morning after Thanksgiving. I canceled the Zelle. She called twice. I did not answer. She texted, "You are destroying this family over gravy." I am not destroying anything. I am rekeying it. When you destroy a lock, the mechanism breaks. When you rekey a lock, the mechanism still works. It just answers to a different key. And the key is mine. Arlen's Silverado was towed on December 5th. Mercer and I stood in the garage and watched the flatbed operator hook the front axle and winch the dead truck backward off the concrete I poured myself, past the workbench I built, past the wall outlet I wired for the key machine that is now sitting where the truck used to be. Mercer said, "Dad, is that Grandpa's truck?" I said it was. He said, "Where is it going?" I said, "Home." He nodded. He understood. Things go where they belong. Trucks belong in their owner's driveway. Keys belong in their owner's pocket. Gravy belongs on a plate that is offered, not poured. Porter's boat trailer was towed the same day. 14 months on my backlot. The cover was torn. A bird had nested in the trailer guide. The tow driver removed the nest carefully and set it on the grass near the fence. Mercer photographed the nest with my phone. He said the bird will find a new place. He was not talking about the bird. Arlen's truck sits in his own driveway now with flat tires and a broken transmission and a for sale sign that has been there for 3 weeks. Nobody has called. The truck is worth $4,200 in running condition. It is not in running condition. It is in the condition of a man who stored his problems in someone else's garage and called it temporary. Here is the part that stays after the locks are changed, and the truck is towed, and the boat trailer is gone, and the pipeline is dry, and the Zelle is canceled, and the keys are cut, and the pins are set, and the building is quiet. Noelle drove past the duplex on Quitman Street 3 times in December. The Ring camera I installed on the porch caught each pass. She slowed at the driveway. She looked at the building. Unit A, her unit for 5 years, had the lights off. The porch light was on the timer I set. The keypad glowed green in the dark. She could not enter the code because the code had changed. She could not use her key because her key was dead metal. She drove past a building where she lived for free and profited from a sublet and hosted a subletter she told not to answer the door when Lyle visited. The building did not look different from the outside. The porch was swept. The lawn was mowed. I mow it. I have always mowed it. The difference was on the inside, where the pins were, where the truth was. Arlen's Silverado sits in his own driveway with flat tires and a for sale sign that has been there since December 10th. $4,200 oboe. Running condition disclaimer. Needs transmission work. Nobody has called. The truck is worth $4,200 if it runs. It does not run. It has not run since Arlen parked it in my garage 2 years ago and called it temporary. Temporary is the word this family uses for everything they take. The duplex was temporary. The maintenance fund was temporary. The truck was temporary. The boat trailer was temporary. None of it was temporary. All of it was permanent until the locksmith made the call. A Saturday morning in January. My kitchen. The counter that Mercer eats breakfast at every morning, because this is a kitchen where nobody pours anything on anyone's plate, and nobody tells a boy he does not belong, and nobody calls a skeleton key stupid. Mercer is at the table eating waffles. Box mix. Aunt Jemima syrup. 2 pats of butter because Mercer likes the way butter melts into the squares. His school backpack is on the chair next to him. His math notebook is open because Mercer does homework at breakfast the way other kids watch cartoons, which is to say voluntarily and without complaint. The skeleton key hangs on a hook by the front door. Next to it, on the same hook strip I mounted last week, are the new keys to Unit A and Unit B. 3 keys on 3 hooks. 1 iron, 2 brass. 1 old, 2 new. 1 that opens nothing, and 2 that open everything. All 3 of them mine. Ames stops by at 9 and with coffee from the Shell station on Shepherd Drive and a bag of kolaches. Because Ames believes that Saturday mornings require kolaches the way inspections require flashlights and lockouts require patience. He sets the coffee on the counter. He hands Mercer a sausage kolache. Mercer says, "Thank you, Mr. Garza." Ames says, "You are welcome, Mr. Thorpe." They have been calling each other by their last names since Mercer was 6, because Ames told him that locksmiths address each other formally on the job, and Mercer took it seriously and has called Ames Mr. Garza for 3 years without exception, because Mercer takes everything seriously. That is not a flaw. That is a quality. Glenda calls it too sensitive. Ames calls it professional. I call it my son. Mercer finishes the kolache. He wipes his hands on a napkin. He reaches up to the hook and takes the skeleton key and puts it around his neck. He tucks it inside his shirt. The leather cord disappears under his collar. The iron settles against his chest. "Dad, can I help at the shop today?" Always. He picks up his backpack. He checks that the key is secure inside his shirt. He walks to the door and he stands there waiting for me in the morning light that comes through the glass panel beside the deadbolt. The deadbolt I installed, the glass I cleaned, the light I did not make, but that finds its way into my house every morning without being invited, because that is what light does. It goes where the door is open. The lock answers to me now. Not to Glenda, not to Noel, not to Arlen or Porter or Cade or the gravy boat or the maintenance fund or the dead truck or the torn boat cover or the subletter who thought she was renting from the owner. The lock answers to the locksmith. The way it always should have.